I'm Charlotte Simons. I work at the Yorkshire Dales Rivers Trust, and I'm the Senior Catchment Project Officer for the River Wharfe. So my job entails working within the Dales to Vales Rivers Network and forming partnerships along the wharf to get environmental improvements along the wharf, mainly based along water quality. So stuff to do with the Water Framework Directive, where we're failing it, and also looking at things like habitat restoration and stuff like that.
My name is Jason Knowles. I am a resident in Otley, and I also work at the Town Council as the Community Development Officer.
A long time ago I did a hydrology module at Cranfield. That's also part of Cranfield University. But don't really think we were doing modelling at that point. Computers, dare I say it, were still in their infancy.
My background as a consultant has also involved working with consultancies who have prepared models in the past. Not flooding models, let me add, but highways models, transport models, things like that.
There were a couple of reasons for us. The first was actually to understand how hydraulic modelling like this can be used, how you can involve a community in it so that they understand and don't feel down the line that they're flummoxed by being quoted figures at, and also to find out what happened at Otley and how things went forward. And what I've not been flooded out. I've had friends who have been, but it's useful to make those contacts with people within Otley who have been, understand their perspective, help them in some respects, by being not just a listening ear, but prodding people in the right places if we can, which is quite interesting, quite useful things to have done.
I was very interested in getting involved because obviously the flooding during November and Boxing Day in 2015 had a major impact on the community. So I became interested in trying to understand what the causes of the flooding had been and how we could maybe alleviate and mitigate flooding and the impact of the floods on the community moving forward. Okay, the meetings from the outset largely involved Nick and Matilda starting off the meeting by asking us if anything new had happened and anything that they need to be informed of so that it could inform the modelling as it moved forward. It involved explanations from Nick largely as to different impacts of the modelling, different types of modelling, and how that could be used in a local situation or a wider situation, and also to then consider how we would best approach and use their time the best so that we could try and understand the flooding impacts in Otley. So that's how it started off initially. We made a decision as a group on what approach would be best, and we decided to use the ECRAS model, which is obviously a publicly available but American-based model. And then throughout the rest of the sessions, it involved Nick largely going off with the help of Matilda, doing some modelling, coming back, and the group then doing some of the modelling themselves, tweaking the model based on information that we're aware of or things that we weren't quite sure of, and then seeing how the models played out and whether that married up with experiences of the two floods in 2015. The discussions that we had were quite wide-ranging throughout the 4 meetings. Nick and Matilda were very good at introducing the meetings by asking if there was anything new that people were aware of, which obviously kept them informed of any activities that we've been involved in, but also at the outset to ask us what we possibly thought the causes had been of the floods and the impacts, which is important in terms of informing the flooding modelling, because obviously that was dependent on some of the anecdotal information of those that had been affected. So yeah, it was important throughout the process that we were able to give our views, and that those views were shared, and that everybody was allowed to have their own opinion.
The first meeting, I came out of it thinking, okay, what have I actually learnt out of this? And I thought to myself, well, I don't quite know where we're going yet. I've learnt that even though I think flooding's quite straightforward, it actually isn't, which is quite useful to understand, and all the elements within that. But also the differences between, fundamental differences that you need to start with, like what's the difference between hydraulic and hydrological, which was useful. And then it's kind of built from there. So come back to the next meeting, it's like, what is the next stage? So I felt that we were gently led along a path of don't really know what anything about this, to actually feeling far more confident and understanding, and then being able to see, yes, actually that does reflect what came out of this, and that, yeah, I can see how this model works. I can see that if you have topographical details and you know what that channel's like and you know what the flow is, you know what's going to come out. And that to me was quite a logical process. And I think we were led through it at the right level at each point. So we weren't bombarded. It felt, the first meeting I did feel a bit, oh, okay, but I need to take all that away and think about it. By the next one, it's like, okay, oh, now I see where that fits in. That's fine, and it's worked on through there.
When the ECRAS model was actually being run, if you put the numbers and everything that went into it to one side, it actually demonstrated, when the model was being run, based on the numbers that were put in there, what happened, what appeared to happen, especially on the Boxing Day floods. The way that it was the water was out of bank, using the terminology, the way the water was out of bank, it almost mirrored exactly what happened on the Boxing Day floods. The interesting thing was that we were allowed to do it on different water courses as well, and where the water ended up down some of the roads and in the channel and things like that. So the model was usable in all of those different areas, and it allowed us to make it almost come to life. So yeah, I think the ECRAS model was a good tool for how we used the modelling. The modelling, some of the terminology in terms of what we were using, given I'm not an expert in flooding or that field, went a little bit over my head. But in terms of the actual use of the model, it made sense when you started to see what the model produced at the end. But I think Nick's input in terms of his experience and his knowledge and his expertise was vital.
I've learned that even though I think flooding's quite straightforward, it actually isn't, which is quite useful to understand, and all the elements within that. We can only reduce the amount of water. What we can't do is take that water away, but it's making sure that what we've got there is being fully utilised in the best way that it can, and understanding why the moat is there, why they're still going to need pumps, if something like a flood bank goes in, what the purpose of that flood bank is, and the other benefits that could be got from doing stuff, say, riverside of the flood bank to slow flow down, but slowing flow down doesn't stop flow. Take part, because you'll learn more and you're being listened to, and your knowledge is needed. So each person in there brought a level of knowledge of one sort or another that fed into making that final result. You know what's affected you. Other people aren't going to know that. And the more of that feeding in there is, the better the picture is at the end. So I mean, that's what we've said on our management plans, is that we might know this stretch here, but somebody else is going to know that stretch there, and we need to bring all those elements together to get the whole picture. Nobody holds the whole picture. Everyone holds little elements, and bringing it together is the important bit.